Hello, everyone. Welcome to Elevating Your Life. And I'm already feeling elevated just chatting with our guest today, pre-show. We have with us today Tracy Doyle. She is a nationally recognized entrepreneur, emotional wellness advocate, and author of Life Storms: Finding Your Clear Sky. Her journey from a childhood shaped by trauma and instability to becoming an award-winning business leader and resilient coach is a testament to the power of reinvention and healing. After building a multi-million-dollar medical communications company and earning accolades like the Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, Tracy faced a breaking point: emotional burnout. This personal crisis became the catalyst for her transformation and the creation of the Aurora Method, a practical psychology-informed mindfulness-based framework helping professional women overcome burnout, reshape limiting beliefs, and reconnect with themselves and others. And through her book, masterclasses, and 8-week course, Tracy empowers professional women to break free from their patterns, keeping them stuck so they can lead their lives with calm, clarity, and confidence. Opening those clear skies. Oh, Tracy, welcome, my dear.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Paula. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, just a privilege, honey, to have you with us today. Well, I would love to have you share, some more of your background and then kind of what triggered you to write this amazing book.
Well, to do that, I'd have to sort of start with, where I came from, right? So I was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey, at a time, when no one really knew what mental illness was. And my mom was mentally ill and she was a teenager. And that really started my journey. And as my journey progressed, I assumed more of a caretaker role at a young age. And I had experienced I had experienced some trauma, being raised by a mentally ill mom. It's not that mental illness it's bad. It's that sometimes people with mental illness make bad choices, and sometimes those choices could have profound effects and devastating effects on the people in their lives. And that was my case. So for me, having grown up like that, my first inclination, having survivor skills rather, was to break free of sort of scarcity and poverty and to become, who I became, right? So I'm still blown, like everything you just said is who the big me is, right? What everyone knows about me. And I'm still blown away that I was an award-winning, entrepreneur because I built and led this multi-million-dollar business. And together with my team, we generated over $100 million in sales in 20 years. It was an amazing journey. And I'm in awe, right? That I'm a first-time published author. And the fact that like people in my industry, I'm no longer there. I sold my business. They refer to me as a legend. Well, that blows my mind. And the reason is because it wasn't always like that. There was a time when I just, I felt so isolated and alone. I'd been struggling with burnout for years and years and years, and I didn't know it because for me, I grew up believing, based on some of those experiences I just shared, that I had to sacrifice myself for my family, for my mom, for my life partner, for my job. And that sacrifice, well, that's what took me to that breaking point. I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was around the holidays. It was December 21st, in 1999, actually. That's how long ago it was. And it was a cold, gray winter's day, like it is today here in New Jersey. And as I was getting ready for work, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and it was like my eyes were just hollow. My spirit was just dim. And I just looked. I didn't even recognize myself because I just looked so empty. And inside my head, I whispered, I'm done. I'm just done. I'm done being responsible, for my mom. I'm done taking care of her. I'm done being responsible for my sister's children because I had custody of them. and then I'm getting all worked up and I'm like, I'm done, being stretched. I felt like I was being stretched in every single direction at work. I was done. I felt like I was fighting everyone and everything. Like no one seemed to understand me. And I'm like, I'm done. And then it was around the holidays. So I thought, you know, if if I got drunk, maybe I'd crash the car. And if I crashed the car, then no one would know that I wanted to die, and that I did this on purpose. And later that night, I actually was jolted awake by someone knocking on my car window saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I came to and I was like, oh my gosh, my car was facing on the opposite side of the road. And I was a hair away from a head-on collision. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like I just almost killed two people, let alone myself.
Mhm.
And I went through with this. And I mean, in that moment, I mean, I got out of the car. I was like, what happened to me? How did I get so lost? I'm crying and I'm crying and I'm telling the police, I'm taking care of my mother. I'm doing this. I'm crying all about it. But that next day is when it really hit me because I was walking to a school meeting for my niece. I had custody of my sister's kids and I'm heart and head are fighting. My head is saying, Tracy, you almost killed two people. How could you do this? And then my heart just was like, but you're still here, and in that moment, it was like, I just like yelled out, like, I want to live. I want to live again. And that moment taught me a lot because it was the first real lesson. It was like sacrifice isn't about abandoning myself. That's what I realized. It was about, you know, basically putting myself first while I was doing it all. You know what I mean? And that meant I needed help. So my background, I had studied psychology and counseling. I wanted to grow up and be a clinical psychologist. I had known I was having suicidal thoughts, but I just never did anything about it. And so in that moment, I needed help and I had to put myself first and get it. And when I did, when I finally got the help that I needed, that's when my emotional healing journey began. And it felt like it was over like 10 years because there's so much I did to get out of this. It was the first realization was that like it wasn't my mom, it wasn't everyone, it wasn't everything that was breaking me. It was my own beliefs, right? Beliefs that were shaped by early life experiences. And I always felt like I didn't belong. And I believe that if I did everything for everyone, then I would belong. So for me, that was the belief that took me to near death. And so I had to learn how to reshape not only that belief, but all the other beliefs that had shaped me. And when I did, I finally found myself, I find my way back to myself. I found my way back to my life. I found my way back to the people that I love. And that's really when I found my purpose. I wanted to help others, find their way back a lot sooner than me because burnout really is pretty serious. And, it has its stages. And I had been that way for a long time. And that's really when I started to discover practices that worked for me. And when I did that, and I started sharing it with other professional women that, they saw me changing and they're like, what are you doing? And I started sharing what I was doing. And then they started referring other people to me, like, hey, I know someone who's burnt out. Can you help them? And that's really when I found my purpose. I love helping other women find their way back too.
Oh, I love it. What a purpose. So would you say that, we can be suffering from burnout and really not realize it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what would some of the signs be? And then what steps would we take? Is that where the Aurora method would come in?
Yes, yes. And thank you for that question because, the signs of burnout start out like this. You feel stressed, right? So, I put myself through college. I had to prove myself, like most people in their 20s, right? I have to make it, right?
Me too,
It starts
yeah.
like stress. But the next thing that starts to happen is as responsibilities increase, we start to feel overwhelmed. I can't, and what are we saying? I can't handle it. I can't handle it, right? And then I have to handle it, right? And we push and we push and we push because we have to handle it, especially women. It's not to say not men, but women in particular, I know. But concurrent with that overwhelm, what starts to happen is we slowly start to believe like no one understands everything that we do. And we start to get frustrated inside. We start to get, I call it fine. We're frustrated, we get irritated, then we start to feel numb because we keep pushing, and then we're completely exhausted, right? And in that exhausted stage, we start to have conflicts. We're fighting with our husbands, we're fighting with our family, we feel like people at work are just like they don't understand, our boss is horrible. It's all them, right? And
Yeah.
and meanwhile, we're in the middle of it and it's them. And then it becomes us. Like if my husband would just, or if my wife would just, and then we're finger pointing. And then we start to slowly feel isolated and alone. And then it gets to a point where it's like you can't handle one more thing and you're just reactive. And it's like volcanic eruptions. You could be cooking, I'll never forget it. Like I'd be cooking dinner at the holidays and my partner would just try and help me and I'd be like, get away. I would be freaking out because I don't know what I needed, but I was so reactive, thinking that she thought I didn't know what I was doing. But meanwhile, she's trying to help. So that's what it looks like. And what the Aurora Method is about is recognizing what drives the reaction, what drives us to think we have to keep pushing through. What's driving us in this overwhelm of trying to prove ourselves, right? So what I learned was it was our life experiences, from early on. And what I've learned how having mentored so many women is that we're all wounded. And I don't mean trauma. In my experience, I had trauma, but we're all wounded in that it could have been a critical parent and you internalized what they said to you in a certain way that matters to you because it hurt you. It could
Mhm.
be teachers, it could be kids rejecting you for how you dressed. It's so many different factors, but the truth of the matter is our wounds matter.
Yeah.
Why? Because I always put my hand here because we refeel them. And
Oh,
someone says something, someone asks us a question, we think they're questioning us, and it triggers a refeel. And that refeel, that wound, creates what I call an initial belief, something like nobody cares, or no
mhm.
one trusts me that I know what I'm doing, whatever it might be from that early on experience and that wound. And I put that in quotes because it doesn't mean like a serious, like I said, a serious hurt. And for some of us, it does. But where does that wound go? Where does that refeel and that initial belief go? I call that the reaction cascade in the book. So follow along. It goes to a limiting belief inside deep in our mind that I'm not good enough. It
Yeah.
quickly, within a nanosecond, triggers a fear. Either I'm never going to be the person they think I should be, or I'm afraid I'll lose my job. And then it shoots up from our toes right in between our two ears again. And it keeps us trapped. And I always do this. It's like a tornado. It keeps us trapped with what I call self-centered thinking. And so what is self-centered thinking? Well, we're either seeking validation outside of ourselves. That was me. I thought if I did everything for everyone and I sacrificed myself, I would belong, right? That was a good example of getting validation outside of me. Or what I call the issues. So no one likes to hear the word selfish. Today we use it as narcissist, right? But self-centeredness is nothing more than being absorbed with a thought, a feeling, or a behavior, right? So what I did was I defined what those issues are when you look at them. So for example, self-pity would mean I feel sorry for myself. Self-reliance means I have to do it all myself. And if I don't, no one will do it right. And those are beliefs and self-centered traits that really keep us stuck because ultimately they project to the outside world, not how we see it. So if we're self-reliant, what we're telling the people in our lives is, I don't trust you. So then they retreat and we disconnect, right? And
Yeah.
if we're feeling sorry for ourselves and we're stuck in self-pity, what they see is someone who's hopeless and they don't know what to do. So they retreat because
Oh
they
my
don't know what to
gosh.
do for us. So
Yeah.
we feel disconnected, right? So you see how this little
Yeah, so they
swirl.
pull back and
Keeps
we
us
pull back
separate.
even more.
Yeah, so the Aurora method is all about helping us recognize that. It helps us to see our patterns. It gives us emotional clarity. But the most important thing that you get from the Aurora method is the ability to actually identify what to change and how to change it in your own personalized mindfulness approach, because then it helps you restore yourself, you restore connection to yourself, but it helps you build bridges back to the people who matter so you don't feel like you're on an island anymore. That's how I felt anyway, lost and alone in an island. So that's it. That's the Aurora method.
Wow. And, lost and alone on an island, that's a good description because that's kind of what it feels like when you want to give up hope. You just
Hmm.
think, I can't do anything right. It's me. You're not. Yeah.
That's
So,
it.
something I love in your book that you said was, we all have people in our lives who teach us things on our journey that we may not understand at the time. Talk about that a little bit for me,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, that is all about how the people in my early life, as much as people in our early lives shape our wounds, there's people in our early lives that really show us the way. And when we reflect back on what they've taught us, we can actually, it guides us back too. Once we start getting back to center, we realize all the things we've had and all the things we've learned, and we can put them into practical action. So
Yeah.
for me, it was my grandmother. My grandmother was my role model, and my Aunt Ann and my Uncle Tim. Like they taught me so much. And when I call it putting the straw down. When I finally stopped looking at what I didn't have because I was so lost on my island, and the straw goes down, I realized, wow, I had so many people in my life that really were rooting for me and were behind me, and their hands were, and you put that straw down, you'll see so many great things.
Yeah. And isn't that just so amazing how really we can have two worlds? We can have the challenges, the things that bring us down, and then we can have those special people or
Mhm.
those special moments in our life that we really don't give the attention to. So would you say where we put our attention to the negative or the positive is a big, big effect on us?
Yeah, I think when we're struggling with burnout, I call it the self-centeredness, the city of limitation. We get trapped inside our minds and we're unable to see. One of my favorite books is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks about this a Toltec concept called mitote, which means we're enshrouded in like a fog and we can't see outside of ourselves. So when we start getting more and more overwhelmed, we can't see outside of ourselves. And when we finally can, we realize all the answers were there because the people that really influenced us in our lives really showed us the way how.
And that is really something to celebrate. And your Aurora method is so awesome. Would you
Thank
like
you.
to share one or two of like your favorite daily practices that
Yeah.
you do that someone could begin today?
Yeah, my favorite one, especially around the holidays, when you're dealing with you're getting dinner ready and the family's over and people are like trying to interfere with your process, at least me anyway. And sometimes I'll feel frustrated and I always do this because it feels like an inner churn on the inside. And if that starts to come up for me, the first thing I'll do is I'll just breathe. I call it the 1 minute reset. So I'll just breathe in calm. So I'm like, I'm feeling calm and I'm letting out the frustration. And then I do it 3 times. And then I'll just say, I'm centered, I'm calm, and I'm handling it. And then I'm able to, and I also say, and I'm responding kindly because, most people are just trying to be helpful, right? Especially when you have a house full. And so that's one of my favorites. The other one I love is my morning routine. I find that it takes 5 minutes of quiet to start your whole day. And it's really an intentional quiet, and everyone's got their own practice. What I like to do is quiet my mind and I set my intention for who I want to be today. And many times I want to be centered and calm and kind and understanding. And I really just want to align myself with a positive way of being for the day. And at the end of my day, I just reflect on it. How did I do? Right. And then if I hadn't been kind or calm, I like focus on what I want to change that next day. So that's my favorite one. Because I've been practicing that one for almost 20 years, and it gets my day started right every day, and that's not to say I don't get churn, but I have the 1 minute meditation or the 1 minute reset rather to go through that quickly.
And that can set that tone for the day. I love it. I
Exactly.
love it. So what would you say about, something that we can all have, unresolved life experiences and that, can affect us as we move forward? What could be some steps to resolve those or accept those and let them be? What would you say on that topic, Tracy?
Well, yeah, I mean, so most of us don't realize how our wounds have affected us, how our life experiences have affected us. In the Aurora Method, I introduced a tool called the self-assessment. And what it does is it asks you to just go through your life quickly, right? Who hurt me? Who am I angry with? And what bubbles fast? When we put that down on paper, the most poignant tool in the Aurora Method is called the turnaround. We get to actually see our patterns. And it's there, and it's quick. It's check boxes. It's not like you got to write journals and journals and journals. It's just a quick assessment. And when you can see it, you actually can name it. When you can name it, you can change it. So that's basically what that's about, right? So if you want to see what's affected you, especially for women or men out there who are struggling and you're reactive and you're feeling in conflict and you don't know why, this is the opportunity for you to recognize what's happening so that you can actually shift some of the things that have shaped you. So it's really about reshaping what was shaped.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. Ah, and what what triggered you to begin doing, to create this Aurora method and help others? What was the big push? And is there a particular something you've seen with helping someone that has just really been a aha moment for you?
Yeah, so over the course of what felt like 10 years, I developed these different practices. And I say this because, when you get help for burnout, like you go to therapy and you're working on things in isolation, you read self-help books, they give guidance, and you're like, oh, I'm going to practice that, then that wanes, right? And I did everything, body work, all sorts of healing work, right? Well, what I found was these feelings come back, these conflicts come back because these wounds still are there. So when they're reignited, the cascade happens. So I was able to see that problem. What I wanted to do was I wanted to have something that was going to help me have real and lasting change. I did not want to be in this state of I'm good for a while and then I'm not. So I'm all about connecting dots. That's just who I am. So when I found these 8 practices, I just put them together into a framework and I practiced it. And then when I was helping other women, I was mentoring them and I was sharing these things with them. And so I saw things like repaired marriages. One of my favorite stories is a guy that I work with. He had estrangement with his brother and his dad. And after he did one of the pieces in the method is all about mending and acknowledgement conversations. And he restored relations with them. And he called me
Oh,
up and I mean, I was crying, right? So the various people I've helped, it's not only finding yourself back to you, it's then, I have another friend, she had a better relationship with her boss, and she got the promotion, so like watching these things happen because you're not in conflict anymore
yeah.
is just so beautiful. So what prompted me to write this book was I was doing really well. I was about to sell my company. Life was great. And in the process of that, my sister, sadly, is like my mom. She has mental illness and she was more disabled than my mom, and I didn't realize it. And my then 13-year-old niece was being the caretaker for her mom, and she needed help. So, unlike me, who didn't know how to ask for help back then because I was in survivor mode, My niece was in survivor mode, but she knew to ask for help. And
Ah,
she did that. And when she did, I went and I uprooted my life and I moved in with her and my sister. I started to feel burnout reactions coming back. The wounds were getting triggered and the reaction cascade was happening more frequently. And what I said to myself was, no, girl, we're not going back. And that's when I made the decision to pour my heart
yeah.
into the book so that, I could help others on a bigger scale. And it gave me that ability to really reprocess some things, let them
Mhm.
go even more, and give my message to the
I
world.
love it. And your book is such a gift. Oh,
Yeah.
Tracy, we have 2 minutes left in the show. Please share your last message and maybe your website, anything you want to share with us, please.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is we don't have to wait for life to calm down to learn how to manage these things. And I think a lot of us don't give ourselves permission for it. So I encourage anyone who's struggling, again, in conflict, you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, but the most important thing, you're reactive and you want it to stop and stay stopped, then the Aurora Method is for you. And I'd love to teach it,
Oh,
So I'm offering a course. It's called the Aurora Method Academy. So if anyone's interested, just go to my website, www.tracydoyle.life. Schedule a 30-minute complimentary consultation with me. I'd love to talk with you about what's going on and if the Aurora Method's right for you, because I'd be happy to help.
oh, Tracy, just a heartfelt thank you, honey, for all you do and all the lives you're making such a difference and your caring and your beautiful information. I was so touched reading your book and all that you're doing for everyone. I'm really grateful. I just love
Uh,
it. I just love it.
Thank you
Oh,
for the opportunity.
oh, you're so welcome. Everybody out there, love, hugs, and blessings. And here's to our clear skies. If they're not with us now, they're ahead. They're coming, huh? Tracy, love, hugs, and blessings. And thank you so much, dear.
Thank you, Paul. Same back to you.